前2年结婚，所以说当时的彩礼是要了108万的现金啊，然后女方家是没有任何的陪嫁，好像只有几床被子，就是从一个平均的水平来说的话，就是起步就是100多万。
What you have just seen is a girl from countryside of China talking about how much a man should pay to get his bride. Yeah, in China, when a man wants to marry a woman, he doesn't just propose. He pays a lot. We call it 彩礼. It's like a reversed version of dowry. You might think it sounds reasonable. It's just a tradition. But you could also call it a bride price, which may be more brutal but closer to the fact. Just like what you have heard in that video. 1 million yuan, which is around $140,000. That's just an entry price for a bride. In Chinese countryside, however, the average annual revenue is just 250,000 yuan, which means it could cost 13 years' income of the groom's family to get the bride. And in some villages, this payment costs a family even 20 to 25 times the yearly income. That's why we usually call the bride price sky high. And the money is just like the download button, which comes after is like implication purchase, without which this application could not function at all. You haven't counted the wedding, the house, the car, or the honeymoon. Yeah, all of these are what you have to provide as a newly groom in China. And when you call it a price, it means the marriage is only a deal. And a deal could break, just like any other deals. Yeah, in China, more than 40% of Chinese couples have had serious arguments over bride price, or even come to break up. Some parents even commit suicide over not being able to afford the money. So the question is China selling its daughters, or is it just love with Chinese characteristics?
斯国的蓝宝石100克，西兰国的纯金戒指200枚，老挝国的翠玉镯300对。
Okay, let's start from the beginning. 彩礼 or bride price is a payment, cash and gifts, that the groom's family gives to the bride's family before the wedding. Different regions have different demands, but demands will disguise themselves as traditions in a fancy way. Just like in English countries, the couple should prepare 4 things before the wedding. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Yeah, China also has sayings that are catchy to make themselves sound reasonable, except all of them are related to money. For example, we have sayings like 三斤三两, 3 caddies, 3 taels, which means you have to prepare 100 yuan notes weighing 3 caddies and 3 taels. That's nearly 1 kilogram, equals to 150,000 yuan, or $20,000. And also, 一动不动, one can move, one can't move. The mover one is a car, and the immover one is a house. And also, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means 1 house with 2 floors, 3 caddies of 100 yuan notes, 4-wheeled car, and the parents of groom under 50 years old. But the situation used to be totally different. In the very ancient China, preaching period, 彩礼 or bride price was one of the 6 rites of marriage, a formal ritual showing respect to the bride's family. It wasn't about buying anyone. It was about promise and attitude. 彩礼 then usually concluded a pair of deer hides, which show you could hunt to feed your partner, and wild geese, symbolizing union and exclusive lifelong companionship. So, why does it get so interesting? Fast forward to around 2010, the bride price explodes. And one 2010, in macro view, it's because that's when China's most gender imbalanced generation, people who were born in the 80s and 90s, started getting married. The one-child policy had created 30 million more men than women. More men chasing fewer women. That's internal force. At the same time, housing prices were going through the roof, and Chinese think house is a minimum demand for marriage. That's external force. So basic economics with internal force and external force, the bride price exploded to a sky-high level. And here is also a dynamic analysis explaining the intention of each class during the bride price going up, and how the behaviors of different classes react to each other, and finally keeps the bride price going up, just like inflation. This is a micro-view explanation. But all of this just explains how instead of why. Why do people still keep the tradition of labeling the bride with price in the 21st century? So there are two layers driving this. One you can see, and one you can't. The visible layer is, although many Chinese live in the city, but have the roots deep in the countryside. City is a place to work, and the countryside is a real place to live. And in these rural areas, there still run integral clan-based communities. And bride price is social pressure in cash flow. Your neighbor charged 200,000, you better charge 250,000. Face, 面子, matters more than food. And for the invisible layer, there are mainly three reasons. The first is what we have talked about, the sex proportion. That's totally sailors' market. If sailors wanted to go on, it will. The second reason is that Chinese nation spirits have been rotten by capitalism. A cultural belief system is quietly shifting from family and tradition to money and status. When a society starts measuring everything in yuan, in RMB, love gets a price tag too. The third reason is more cruel and realistic. In China, sons are sort of the real offspring, and daughters are only viewed as someone external that will eventually leave. So if my son will be charged for the bride price, why don't we just sell our daughter, who is just an external one, at a high price, and take the money for my son's bride price? That would not cost our family at all. And even I don't have any son, a daughter is basically extra money. To these Chinese parents, before the daughter becomes the bride, they have already evaluating the price of her. There's a reason that Chinese believe the proverb 多子多福, more children, more fortune, literally. And yes, there's a vicious circle happening in many places in China right now.
你要问孩子愿不愿意？妈妈，我还没买到执照啊。
In previous part, I talked about the countryside of China. So what about the urban areas? Here's the thing. Not everyone in China agrees on bride price. Not even close. The number will vary from city to city and individual to individual. Usually, the more developed a city is, the lower bride price will be. And family of the bride usually could choose to give it up or charge more. The national average bride price in 2024 is about 140,000, roughly 20,000 US dollars. If we just look at some advanced coastal cities, almost zero. But in some rural provinces, that number is just the starting bid. In Jiangxi province, which is less financially developed and the most infamous regions for extremely high bride price, to cater the grooms who couldn't afford the bride price, a local bank once launched a loan product. They call it installment plan for getting your girl. Annual interest rate as low as 4.9%, maximum on 300,000. But just like what I have said, this thing could be individualized arbitrary. So, in the most developed city of China, Shanghai, sad stories about bride price might still happen. I have a university classmate who is Shanghainese, and he kept a serious relationship with another Shanghainese girl for his whole bachelor life, 4 years. But when they graduated and it came to marriage, meaning the parents, new house, they agreed to share the bill, and the excessive parts my classmate's family pay will be viewed as the bride price. But the problem is, how much more should his family pay? They would like the proportion of 6-4, but his girlfriend family insisted on 8-2. And they just couldn't make compromise. So the result is a breakup of 4 years relationship because of the bride price. True story in Shanghai. By this sad story, you may know that this bride price stuff is actually very controversial in China too. 3 debates about it are happening at the same time. Debate 1 is women versus women. Higher educated women tend not to want bride price. They see it as transactional, even an embarrassing shame on true love. But here's a twist. Chinese families often support bride price. You may be wondering why this is objectifying themselves. I don't make it up. Here's their argument. Women get paid less in society and take on more labor and risk in marriage. Bride price is a compensation, a kind of wealth redistribution, and also a pushback against patriarchal rules.
在家庭中普遍存在的结构性问题都没有解决的前提下，你们想到的居然是
欧女人不是要平等吗？那性别要彩礼啊！
这个逻辑是啥？这个逻辑就是黑人奴隶说我要独立，然后白人跳出来说，哎，你要独立可以啊，那你先不要吃我们奴隶煮的饭。荒谬啊，就是荒谬。
But I don't really get why does she compare these two cases. I prefer not to comment on that. Debate 2 is how much and what does it mean? Is bride price a financial safety net for the bride? A lucky token? Just a ceremonial gesture? Or natural payment for a human being? If it's a former two, why is it so high? Like 20 times a family's yearly income. And if it's the last one, it shouldn't be legal at all. But the reality tells us the answer is really the third one. A price, a deal. And you know what? If it's a deal, it's negotiable. A gender sociology professor at Fudan University, top 3 school of China, basically our version of Harvard, actually made a video series on how bride should negotiate the price to, let's call her own words, protect your own benefits. And the series is called Brave Money Talk in Your Intimate Relationship. Now, she has nearly 1.8 million followers. And some couples now even sign marriage contracts, legally binding agreements about the bride price amount, responsibilities for both parties, and penalty clause when the bride falls to ball boy. Romance is not that, it's just notarized. Debate 3 is who actually gets money. This is one that matters most. Is the Cǎilǐ supposed to go to the bride as a security, her foundation, her power in the marriage? Or does it go to her parents? If bride price is a compensation to bride, just like the feminist said, the money should go to bride. But in many cases, especially in rural areas, the parents take it all. The bride sees none of it. And that brings us to a 16-year-old girl in Sichuan who ran away from her family with fear and tears in 2023 because her parents made the marriage decision directly for her without her seeing the groom at once. Because they had received the bride price of 206,000 yuan.
啊，
我爸妈怎么办？我妈也给他们的。
小朋友，公安局的啊，是怎么样呢？没人放心，外面我们的人到了。
That's not tradition. If that's not sending daughter, tell me what it is. That's just human trafficking with a red envelope. So, all of this I have talked about before is a view of bride. What about the groom? Are they just evil buyers? Let me tell you about my cousin. He bought a house as bride price. But compared to other bride price, you can easily tell that's just not enough. So every month, he transfers half his salary to his wife. Automatically, like a subscription. But subscribing me is free now. He is not paying rent. She doesn't live with him. He just needs to do so as a makeup for insufficient bride price. But the reason why my cousin chose her is because first, he's around 35, and after 35, you're too old for marriage in China. Second, his wife's offer is the only one that he could afford. Now, here's what bride price creates. When you take bride price as a norm, you're basically training a generation of men to believe that money equals commitment. Their love is something you can demonstrate with a bank transfer. Something breaks in the brain. They stop thinking, do I love her? They start thinking, have I paid enough to get a marriage life? And the flip side, some men start doing the math. They calculate the cost of a Chinese wife. And they decide the numbers just don't work. So they look elsewhere. On Chinese social media right now, there's a growing conversation among men about marrying Russian or Ukrainian women because they believe these women lost their homes during the war, or Southeast Asian women, or anyone who doesn't require bride price. And even a Chinese filter herself as Russian, talking about no bride price in Russia and how popular Chinese men are in Russia.
兄弟姐妹们，你们好，我是俄罗斯娜拉。很多朋友问我，娶个俄罗斯媳妇需要多少彩礼？今天我来告诉你们，俄罗斯本来就是男少女多，而且讲究婚姻自由，父母根本没有时间去管他们的。你也不要跟姑娘提什么彩礼，因为她压根儿就不懂那是个啥。即使你没车没房没存款，他们也不会介意，只要她真心喜欢你，就是天天跟你吃土豆，她都很开心。
All of this, they're calling it open your eyes to the world. But most of them barely speak other languages than Chinese. So what they do is buy brides from Southeast. Vietnam before, now. From September 2024 to April 2025, there are 4 cases about buying Southeast Asian brides, happening in just one small county in China. So instead of paying the bride price, they actually buy brides now. And these brides are not selling themselves. All of these are human trafficking. So the bride runaway happened a lot. There was a Lao bride wanted video on Douyin, Chinese TikTok. And in the comments, you can see many tips. Some suggested, lock her up in the basement at home. Let her go after 10 years. Anyway, it will be worth the cost by then. The other even went further. Give her an electronic collar. If she goes out of rage, shock her until she's rolling on the ground. And there is even someone about to take the advice asking, where can I buy it? All of this happened on 28th April, 2026, less than 1 week before. Rows of diamonds have spoken so easily today, and that's why they treated their wives as goods, as slaves.
这个就是爱情，不爱你妈买麻花情。
Is bride price good or bad? Honestly, that's one question. It's a symptom of a society where the gender gap has grown so wide, so fast, that people don't know how to trust each other anymore. So they use money as a stand-in. The Chinese government knows this is a problem. They have issued Central Government No. 1 document and started campaigns against excessive bride price for years. Officials in some villages literally go from door to door telling families to lower the price. But here's the thing about banning something people desperately want. It's like alcohol prohibition. When you ban alcohol, people don't stop drinking. They just start buying it in secret, in alleys, from strangers. When you tell parents they can charge for the daughter's hand in marriage, they don't stop. They'll try to find another way. The law can control what you do, but it cannot touch who you are. So, last question at the end of this video. If you have to pay a price to marry the person you love right now, in this moment, how much would you put? The moment you start calculating, the bubble of love pops. And that, right there, is how hundreds of millions of Chinese people have learned to think about marriage. You ask, do you love me? And the only answer is